Hello and welcome to Ocean News. My name is Ashan Mewasing and I am live from our London studio. We bring you the latest developments from around the globe alongside in-depth coverage of the stories. Let's dive right into the headlines. 13 people were wounded and several houses damaged in a Ukrainian drone attack on the southern Russian city of Rostov-on-Don, local authorities reported. Emergency services responded quickly to the scene, where residents of an apartment block were evacuated following the explosion. Police cars and ambulances were deployed amid reports of significant structural damage. One local resident described the moment of the blast as a sudden, powerful shock that shattered windows and sent debris flying. The incident marks another escalation in cross-border hostilities between Ukraine and Russia. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that the US is making sincere efforts to end the war in Ukraine and suggested the two countries could reach future agreements on nuclear arms control. Speaking in Moscow ahead of a planned summit with US President Donald Trump in Alaska, Putin told senior Russian officials that Washington's approach to the conflict showed genuine intent to broker peace and ensure long-term stability in Europe and globally. He also links the possibility of peace to progress in talks on strategic offensive weapons, hinting at a potential follow-up to the New START treaty, which is set to expire in February 2026. The comments come as high-stakes diplomacy intensifies between the world's two largest nuclear powers. India has imposed an anti-dumping duty on certain steel imports from Vietnam, the Ministry of Commerce and Industry announced in a notification. The move follows a year-long investigation into the impact of these imports on India's domestic steel industry. The duty targets specific hot-rolled flat products of alloy or non-alloy steel, which the ministry says were being dumped at unfair prices, causing significant injury to local producers. As the world's second-largest crude steel producer, India has taken similar measures in recent months, including a 12% safeguard duty in April to counter a surge in cheap steel imports, particularly from China. Ukrainian forces have stabilized the front line near the town of Dobropila in eastern Ukraine after a sudden Russian advance threatened to pierce defensive positions. According to Donetsk region governor Vadim Flashikin, the situation has been brought under control thanks to efforts of Ukraine's defense forces. Russian troops had pushed about 10 kilometers toward a key defensive line, raising concerns of a broader breakthrough. In response, Kiev deployed additional forces, including the Azov Corps, which reportedly inflicted significant losses on the attackers. While analysis noted minimal Russian gains near Povrovsk, Ukrainian officials say the front is now holding firm. Israeli Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich has approved the controversial settlement project in the West Bank, aiming to bury the prospect of a future Palestinian state, according to a statement from his office. The plan includes construction of 3,401 housing units in the E1 corridor between Ma'ale Adumim and East Jerusalem, a move widely condemned by Palestinian officials, human rights groups, and several foreign governments. Critics argue the development would effectively divide the West Bank, undermining the viability of a two-state solution. While Smotrich claimed the plan had backing from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and US President Donald Trump, there was no official confirmation. The decision comes amid heightened global scrutiny of Israel's actions in Gaza and is likely to further isolate the country diplomatically. Palestinian officials have called on the US to intervene, while Qatar and Norway described the move as a clear violation of international law. Thousands of Iranians gathered in Tehran to commemorate Arba'in, a major Shiite Muslim observance marking the end of a 40-day mourning period following Ashura, which honors the martyrdom of Imam Hussein. The procession, held across the capital, drew participants who could not travel to Karbala, Iraq, the traditional site of pilgrimage. The march featured strong anti-Israel and anti-US sentiment, with some attendees walking on flags and displaying banners of late Iranian commanders. Security was visibly present throughout the event. Parade participants voiced themes of national unity, resistance, and defiance in the face of foreign threats, with one declaring Iran's readiness to respond with greater force if attacked again. Andronico Rodriguez, leader of the Popular Alliance Party and current president of Bolivia's Senate, has launched his presidential campaign ahead of the August 17th elections, signaling a generational shift in Bolivian politics. Once a protege of former President Evo Morales, Rodriguez has since distanced himself from Morales and the incumbent Luis Arce government, presenting himself as an independent candidate. With roots as a coquelero and a strong academic background, Rodriguez is emerging as a key figure in Bolivia's leftist movement for socialism. He is running alongside vice presidential candidate Mariana Prado, aiming to appeal to younger voters eager for change. Ukraine's trade deficit expanded to $18.5 billion in the first half of 2025, up from $12.4 billion during the same period last year, according to data released by the State Statistics Service. The growing gap between imports and exports reflects ongoing economic challenges as the country continues to navigate the impacts of war, reconstruction efforts, and fluctuating global market conditions. Economists note that rising import costs and limited export capacity have contributed significantly to the widening deficit. WhatsApp has accused the Russian government of trying to block secure communication for over 100 million Russians by restricting calls on the encrypted messaging app. Moscow began limiting WhatsApp and Telegram calls, citing concerns over foreign platforms not cooperating with law enforcement on fraud and terrorism cases. While text messaging and voice notes remain unaffected, users across Russia have reported connectivity issues and difficulties using the apps. The move comes as Russia pushes a state-controlled messaging app called Max, raising fears about increased government surveillance. Digital rights groups warn this is part of a broader effort to control information and restrict citizens' access to private communication channels. Romania has called for expanding the joint Black Sea mine-clearing task force with Turkey and Bulgaria to include patrols aimed at protecting critical energy infrastructure and maritime trade routes from potential Russian attacks. Romanian Defense Minister Inaut Mustano emphasized the need for close cooperation among NATO allies sharing the Black Sea, which has become a key conflict zone since Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine. The existing task force, formed last year, has focused on clearing drifting mines that threaten commercial shipping. Mustianu warned that Russia's ongoing attempts to disrupt the navigation and jam GPS signals underscore the importance of securing the region. With a planned US-Russia summit on the horizon, Romania hopes the talks will lead to a ceasefire and lasting peace with strong security guarantees for Ukraine. At least 37 people have died and dozens more remain missing after flash floods triggered by a cloudburst devastated Chausti village in Indian-administered Kashmir. The remote Himalayan village, located in Kishtwar district, was struck by intense rains that unleashed landslides and swept away homes, vehicles, and a large community kitchen serving pilgrims on a Hindu religious journey. Rescue teams, including police, disaster officials, and the Indian military, have evacuated over 150 people, many seriously injured. Officials estimate that around 50 people are still unaccounted for. The pilgrimage route has been suspended. US President Donald Trump has announced the 2025 Kennedy Center honors recipients, including country star George Strait, action icon Sylvester Stallone, rock legends Kiss, Broadway actor Michael Crawford, and disco singer Gloria Gaynor. The prestigious awards, celebrating a lifetime contributions to American performing arts, will be broadcast in December on CBS. Trump, who said he was reluctant to host the event, also highlighted ongoing renovations at the Kennedy Center amid efforts by some lawmakers to rename the institution in his honor. An American pharmaceutical company, Eli Lilly, will increase the UK list price of its weight loss and type 2 diabetes drug Mounjaro by up to 170% starting in September, raising the monthly cost from £122 to £330 to align with prices in other European markets. Despite the hike, the NHS will continue to provide the drug at an affordable rate under a separate agreement with Lilly, ensuring ongoing patient access. The price adjustment comes amid US efforts to pressure drug makers to raise prices overseas to help reduce costs domestically. The US dollar gained ground on Thursday after data showed a larger than expected rise in producer prices for July, fueled by higher costs in both goods and services. This increase suggests inflationary pressures remain elevated, complicating expectations for Federal Reserve interest rate cuts later this year. Although a rate cut in September is still widely anticipated, the stronger inflation data has raised concerns about the pace and scaling of future easing. The dollar index rose by 0.5% to 98.17, while the euro and British pound softened against the US currency. Gambian police have charged 3 women in connection with the death of a 1-month-old girl who underwent female genital mutilation, despite the practice being banned in the country for over a decade. One woman faces life imprisonment and is currently in custody, while the 2 others were charged as accomplices and released on bail. The case has sparked widespread outrage, with the National Human Rights Commission calling it a national wake-up call. Officials emphasize that FGM is a criminal offense and a serious human rights violation, urging stronger enforcement of the law to protect children from harm. Liverpool have bolstered their defence ahead of their Premier League opener by agreeing a deal to sign 18-year-old centre-back Giovanni Leoni from Parma for a reported 26 million euros. The Italian teenager is set to undergo a medical and join the first team immediately, with no loan move planned. His arrival comes as manager Arne Slot looks to shore up a backline that showed signs of vulnerability during pre-season. Liverpool host Bournemouth on Friday in an emotional return to Anfield following the recent death of Diogo Jota and his brother, while new record signing Florian Wirtz is also expected to feature after his £100 million move from Bayer Leverkusen. Those were the headlines. Stay with us as we delve into each story in greater detail after a brief pause.